He's a character that is the emperor, but is a character that is racked with self-doubt. So I found it very interesting because this is a man of great layers and great contradiction.
Sometimes can watch a panther, it could walk by you, never know if it will walk by an attack or it'll just continue walking. And that is Shehbani Khan. So I try to imbibe as much as possible of these animal traits in this character.
It didn't feel like she is that big Shabana Azmi that we've heard of, you know. She was so normal. She was very sweet. She was just talking to you, correcting me.
Game of Thrones is a big show, and if someone's comparing the scale of it, it's great. But this has nothing to do with Game of Thrones.
Hi, this is Amina Sheikh here, and with me today I have the cast of The Empire. The show is already making noise on social media, on different platforms, and right now I have Drashti Dhami and Dino Morea welcoming them on ETimes. First of all, starting with you, Drashti, and hi, of course. And how was it working on this show for you overall?
It was really nice. It was a very different feel. It is very different from TV. I learned a lot. The language was different. The character I played was completely different from what I played in the past. This set was more serious, more intense. People are trying to, there's a lot of layers and layers when they're acting, which I kind of learned day by day going on set. The costume, the makeup, the hair, everything was different. I learned less is more. I mean, I used to wear very, very little makeup, and yet it would take really long because they would go so much into details. So yeah, it was very different, but fun at the same time.
And Kunal is also here finally.
Hey, what's up?
Sorry, welcome to ETimes.
So welcome on ETimes, Kunal, and we just started with Drashti, talking about a character. Moving on to you, how difficult was it? Because you try to ape different characters, like you have been seen playing a lady, and there have been completely a story on you that you keep on trying, experimenting different roles. So how was this one for you?
Well, this one was very interesting because he's a man of great contradictions. I think that for me was the most interesting thing. This is a character that is physically weak, physically strong, but emotionally can be very weak. And in fact, he needs the women in his life to keep always sort of pushing him in the right direction, because he can go completely in the wrong direction. And this is also a character that can be poetic, but can be brutal. He's a character that is the emperor, but is a character that is racked with self-doubt. So I found it very interesting because this is a man of great layers and great contradictions. And that's usually very, when you have a character that's playing an emperor, it's written in a very sort of one-dimensional sort of way. This is a character that is the emperor, so he will be like this, and he will behave like this, and he will speak like this. But here, this is a character, even though he becomes the emperor eventually.
Talking about your character, of course, there were also some comparisons being made with Khilji, Ranveer Singh character as Khilji. But you said, it's very beautiful to get that as a compliment. But, what do you have to say about your own character? How was it like playing this role? And how do you take this compliment as?
So Shehbani Khan, I maintain always, is when I first heard the character, I thought it was just the most beautiful character to play. Something I've never done in my career so far. And when I heard it, I honestly knew this is an opportunity for me to come out and take this as a challenge and excel, and basically show that I can really do some stuff with this character. Playing an antagonist has no limitations. You can bring in madness in any form, in any way, and people will probably enjoy it. So that's what I did with Shehbani Khan. I mean, he's brutal, he's savage. My director and me compared him. We compare him to an animal. Any character, I do this of late, any character that I'm trying to associate with, I think of an animal, and this particular character is like that of a Black Panther. So if you watch a Black Panther closely, just the way it walks, the way it prowls, the way it growls, the way it attacks, the way its cunningness, yet beautiful to look at, and so we try to imbibe as much as possible in Shehbani Khan. And that worked really well. I think it worked really well in when you see him on camera, when you see him on screen. For your question to being compared with Khilji, I keep saying that when you're compared to the best, I don't mind it. Ranveer did a great job in playing Khilji. The characters you'll see are very different. There's a different madness in both these characters. Shehbani Khan will bring in his own sort of recipe for madness and the way he plays himself. So there is a big difference, but comparisons will be drawn in every front with his character, with its show, because it is a large show. It is a period show. It has the costumes. It has the look, and quite excited, to be honest. A little nervous, but quite excited to having it released and for you all to see on the 27th.
Yeah, you guys were shooting in Uzbekistan, and like now you guys have had to schedule your schedule completely. So how was that? Because the show also had to face a kind of difficulty while doing this.
Well, yeah, it was challenging. I think the most challenging thing for all of us was, of course, shooting this show during the pandemic. And whenever there was a possibility of shooting, when things opened up, we used to shoot a bit and then we had to take a break again. So when you're doing that, it becomes quite challenging as an actor as well, because you're not, you're supposed to shoot the whole show in 3-4 months at one go. And then you keep getting breaks, but you have to stay in character. And then you come back on set. Then you shoot for a couple of weeks, then you get a break again. So that can be challenging. And of course, there is the fear when you're shooting during a pandemic. You obviously follow all the protocols and stuff, but as an actor, you've got to wear a mask and take the mask off before the shot, sanitize your hands after every shot. So it was very challenging. And especially a show like this, which is a big show, you know what I mean? If you're shooting a small indie film within, contained one house, few characters, it's much easier. But this is hundreds of character actors, war sequences, big sets. So it became far more challenging.
Yeah, and it was cold, right?
It was very cold.
Yeah, the layers of clothes helped.
And you're wearing layers of clothes, which you're supposed to wear in Uzbekistan, but you're shooting in Bombay now. So
yeah, now you're shooting in Bombay, because of and you had to recreate the set completely, like what exactly it was in Uzbekistan, and now right now you had to create that kind of atmosphere. It looks like the war kind of period. So that of course takes a lot of time to especially during this pandemic. So how was that for you guys? Because somewhere even your schedules, like if you are working on some other projects that gets on hold.
I think more than that, I think what happened during the pandemic was we started shooting, and of course everyone got tested and we came on set, and firstly half of them didn't want to test themselves. They were like, no, what if we are positive? But somehow we all went on set, we started shooting, and 4 days later, I still remember, I think Kunal and me were going to be shooting that time in Bhandup. And we got a call suddenly for a 12 o'clock shift that, today's shoot is canned. Then we get to know one person has tested positive. So then we are first waiting whether he's or she's tested positive or not. Then the other 4 people are tested. Then the whole cast. So every time there was a wait. We would shoot and even one person would test positive. Then we would be like, okay, now and for all those days, I mean, my house, everyone's a little paranoid when it came to the pandemic. So I used to sleep in another room. So every time I would shoot, I would be sleeping alone and no one would talk to me. So I would wait, okay, now when I have those 15 days off, then I'll get a COVID test done and then I'll get out of the room. So that got a little difficult. I still believe it was the best choice of not going to Uzbekistan and shooting here, because it was way more controlled. We could control everything because it was a set. And had it been we went there, it would have been really cold for us to shoot. Those layers of clothes wouldn't really worked, because it was minus 20 degrees. So I'm glad in a way that we shot here.
How are you preparing for this role? Because you said it was completely different for you. You have not done a role like this. And of course, we have also not seen you doing such roles. We have seen you doing romantic avatars. We have seen you doing action also, but this one was completely different. So how was it preparing for this role for you?
So my first process was, every actor has a different process. My process obviously was to read the script over and over again. I read the episodes over 25 times to understand the entire story first and then the character himself. It's important to understand the psyche of Shehbani Khan, it's important to understand the world you're in. There is no reference. Let's be clear. There's no reference to 400 years or 500 years ago as to how people behaved, how they acted. So that gave me an opportunity as an actor to just, do what I felt was right for this character. Like I said, he's brutal, he's savage, he's cunning. He believes that the throne should be earned and not be inherited. So that was his main fight. He wanted to increase his empire, and he always believed that he had to go and earn every war had to be earned. So his psyche is different, brutal. Very less emotion, but there is emotion, but you'll never see it. And hence we compare him to a panther because, like I said, you sometimes can watch a panther, it could walk by you. Never know if it'll walk by an attack or it'll just continue walking. And that is Shehbani Khan. So I try to imbibe as much as possible of these animal traits in this character. Before every scene, I created a playlist for myself. I'd listen to a certain track which would give me the energy I needed, or the background playing in my head while I was performing that scene. So it sets me in the mood for that particular scene. So these are the few processes I followed to make Shehbani as nice, as beautiful, as watchable as possible. And you're right, I've only played romantic, and I've done action films, and I've done thrillers, but never really played this large an antagonist role ever. So challenging for me, and I truly hope that people who see it, come out and say, okay, that's pretty commendable. Fingers crossed.
To everyone out there, how was it working with Shabana Azmi? She's of course one legendary actress, and she has her own fun side. But like working on a project like this, how was that experience for all of you?
I think she's a legend, and when you see her for the first time, or just the thought that, so everyone around me, like especially my mums and my masis and my mom-in-law, was like, oh wow, you're going to be working with her. Oh wow, have you seen? So when they got to know that, today I'm going on set and I'm going to be working with, oh, so have you seen her? Have you spoken to her? Have you met her? How is she? And I'm like, you know what? Let me still, I'm yet to go on set, so wait. And of course, I was very nervous. But the minute I went on set, she spoke really, as if it didn't feel like she is that big Shabana Azmi that we've heard of. She was so normal. She was very sweet. She was just talking to you, correcting me, correcting my diction, correcting my pronunciations. So it was actually really nice working with her.
Kunal, what do you have to say? Because you have worked with like Sharmila Tagore, and now you're working with Shabana Azmi. So that is completely different experience for you altogether, I'm sure.
Well, it's incredible working with her. The thing about her is that, like Drashti was also saying, is that everybody thinks that she's very serious, and that she's, obviously she comes with a great bearing, and, she has gravity attached to her. But she's also great fun to be around. She's full of stories, anecdotes, jokes. Whenever she's there, it's always light, the atmosphere. And at the same time, there's so much to learn from her as an actress. I mean, there were so many times when I wasn't required on the set, but she was shooting. I wanted to go and watch. So it's fun, and it's also like, it's also a great learning to be with her.
Do you know what you have to say?
Vanaji, I don't think he's a legend. I don't think he's a legend, she's phenomenal. When I did my first scene actually with her, I was thoroughly prepared. The corner of my eye, I could see she walks onto the set. There's a nervousness which develops because there's great experience walking onto the set, and an aura of a fantastic actor walking into the set. I had to just kind of put my blinkers on and not look at her, because when you do look at her, I feel because I was really nervous performing in front of her, and I was going to do this large scene in front of her, and I wanted to be so in it. But then she looked, I had to go and say hi, and not be, and sort of switch off from that character and go and say hi. But she makes you feel so comfortable before any scene. She makes you feel like, don't worry, you'll be fantastic. And that's the beauty about Shabana ji. I mean, even though being such a large actor with so many other people around just makes you feel at ease, that you don't mind going and giving it your best. And those moments I cherish a lot, because besides me trying to excel, somewhere you're also watching the other person in the scene, and watching her is a delight. Just to watch her expression, the way she moves, the way her eyes move, and her language. It was an absolute pleasure. So a truly marvelous experience for me.
Also, this series has been compared to Game of Thrones and Irtugul. So what do you have to say on that? What are the reactions on that? There have been memes around it. There have been some comparisons to Game of Thrones and Irtugul, of course, because it talks about power. And even, Game of Thrones was, series which would talk about that. So what are your thoughts on that?
Well, when you're making a show like this, there will be comparisons because of the scale of the show. But, and that's complimentary because, Game of Thrones is a big show, and, if someone's comparing the scale of it, it's great. But this has nothing to do with Game of Thrones, and it's nothing like the Game of Thrones. The story is different, the characters are different, the world is different. So really, for to be called the Indian Game of Thrones, I don't know if it's very flattering. Yeah. If you're talking about the scale, yeah, well, great. But otherwise, it's a whole different thing. And I think any piece that you make, which is a period sort of show or a film, will always be compared to something that was made before. Because people haven't seen it and they don't know what it's about. So they will make comparisons. And I think once the show is out, I think those comparisons will end.
Drashti, do you have to say something on this?
I think it's a compliment if someone says that, oh, your show looks like Game of Thrones, but it not necessarily be Game of Thrones. I think let people watch it and let them decide whether it was or does it look like Game of Thrones or not. I totally think it's a compliment. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, it's nowhere close to what a Game of Thrones looks like. So,
okay, cool. And Dino, what are your thoughts?
My thoughts on this is I second what both of them say, that for me, when you're compared to the best, it's a compliment, it's flattery. But having said that, it's not similar. It's only similar in sort of scale, in grandeur, in going back to a certain period. Stories are completely different. So when people do watch it, they will realize. But yes, being compared to something that's done phenomenally well is very flattering. I like the sound of it. I like the thought of it. But when you watch our show, then you'll be pleasantly surprised that it's a different story altogether. And we hope that the next show that's made, they'll say, oh, this is like the Empire.
Like the Empire, actually, I'm sure. So after the Empire, what is keeping you guys busy?
Promotions.
And upcoming projects you guys are working on?
On the 3rd of September, I've got my movie releasing, Helmet, which I produce. So these 2 weeks are just the best weeks after a very long time in my life. And I'm cherishing these moments because there's one beautiful show I've got as an actor, and there's a beautiful movie I got as a producer. So I'm so involved in it right now. And then
the trailer is quite good of the Helmet. I must compliment. It's been liked by a lot of people because it has that quirk kind of sense of humor. So
yes, it's worked really well. The feedback has only been positive. There's not a single negative comment on the trailer. So I'm quite thrilled about this. And so my journey as an actor and a producer have sort of both fired at the same time. And I'm really looking forward to the next couple of months.
What about you, Kunal?
Well, I have an anthology that's up for release on Netflix. It's called Unkahi Kahaniyan. And it's a beautiful story that I'm part of, and working with a wonderful director, Saket Chaudhary. He's somebody whose work I've always really liked, and I really enjoyed working with him. And what I really liked about the story is that, first of all, it's very different from the Empire, the Old World. It's an urban story, it's an urban romance, and usually what happens is that we see success when it comes to the people that we talk about, or relationships in the movies. It's very rarely that you see people that have failed or relationships that have failed. And this is about that. So I found that very interesting. And that's up for release on the 17th.
That's quite nice to hear about it. Drashti, what do you have to say? What are the new projects for you after Empire?
I'm waiting for the show to release, and that's about it.
Thank you so much for time and all the best for your project. And I hope
Thank you. Thank
I'm
you.
sure it will be wonders. Thank you. Goodbye.
Thank you.
Bye.